be going from Full House to the Big House. I've been waiting all day to say that. Oh, and Becky. Oh, Becky. Look how hard it is to get into some of these big schools around America. Of all the people that apply, only 5% get into Stanford, 7% get into Yale, and it goes down the list. USC, UCLA, Georgetown, all that, 16%. It's hard to get into these schools, no question about it. But 50 people now, at least 50 people are charged in connection with what's being called the biggest college admission scandal ever prosecuted by the Department of Justice.
Two of those people named in the indictment are actresses Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman. TV stars Felicity Huffman and Lori Loughlin both charged with conspiracy to commit mail fraud and wire fraud, along with 33 other parents under indictment after the FBI lifted the lid on Operation Varsity Blues, a 10-month investigation culminating in dozens of arrests, busting a massive nationwide college admission scheme.
We're talking about deception and fraud, fake test scores, fake athletic credentials, fake photographs, bribed college officials.
The feds say a man named William Singer was the ringleader, making millions, taking bribes from wealthy families disguised in part as charitable donations with the aim to help their kids get into top colleges and universities. Singer bribed coaches to list the kids as recruited athletes, despite a lack of talent, or bribed test administrators and takers to help the students cheat on SAT and ACT tests.
Yikes. We need an attorney. Good thing Rocco came in.
Good morning, guys. Good to see you,
man. So what are the charges here? Well, by the way, we keep looking for mugshots, and they would get mugshots like the actresses will?
They will get mugshots, fingerprints, usually on the first day that they're processed or arrested.
Incredibly embarrassing. What are the charges?
So they're charged with conspiracy to commit mail fraud and what's called honest services fraud. So if you don't steal any money, there's a charge federally. It's called the deprivation of honest services. So basically bribing people to do something they shouldn't.
And how much time could that be?
Well, it's up to 20 years, but there are federal sentencing guidelines that really limit that range. In this case, they probably don't wind up with jail time, but because they're high profile, there's always that risk that a judge wants to send a message out there. Don't do this, you're going to go to jail, and it deters other people, especially with high-profile defendants.
And even if they were to go to jail, it'd be, one of the nicer jails for them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in any of them,
maximum security?
But it wouldn't be maximum security. They'd be what you call, club fed, so to speak, kind of what some of the, lower-level criminals go to.
So what was interesting, too, about in this complaint, it was more than 200 pages, and you said you read them all, right?
I read them all, yes.
So they have emails. They said there's phone calls and that kind of thing. But what was interesting was, when it comes to Lori Loughlin and her husband, they were both listed and charged. But when it comes to Felicity Huffman, even though William H. Macy, her husband, was on the phone calls, present for some of these conversations, why isn't he charged?
So there are some nuanced distinctions you make. As a federal prosecutor, and I'm a former federal prosecutor, you look back and you say, can I prove the case against this person? It looks like in the earlier stages, when Macy's daughter went first through this process, the older daughter, they didn't have this guy cooperating. He goes back and he builds the case by recording Huffman and her husband later under the guise of talking about their younger daughter. It looks like to me they didn't have enough to charge Macy with the initial scheme regarding the older daughter. It looks like Felicity Huffman was the mover and shaker there, so they have communications with her, and he was kind of more along the sidelines. That's my best guess.
But he knew, but I guess that doesn't mean anything just because you knew.
Just because you know. Now, there were conversations later about their second daughter that Macy was more involved in, at least according to the complaint. But they never materialized. They didn't go through with that with the second daughter. So I think they made that nuanced cut in terms of who to charge.
So with Lori and her husband, I guess he was just an active participant saying, hey, I'll pay or I'll...
He seems to have been much more of an active participant. Okay. One, he sent the checks. That's pretty clear from the complaint. Two, there were a lot of emails going back and forth between this guy Singer, who was the mastermind, Lori Loughlin, and her husband, and they both were really active in the process. So I think that's the distinction between Macy and Lori Loughlin.
My favorite part is where they pretended like their kids were good in a sport, and they would get a scholarship to play soccer or whatever on the crew team, and they'd never even play.
They apparently were photoshopping pictures of them engaged in the activities to put it into their profile so that when anybody looked at it at the college beyond the coaches who got bribed, it would look like a normal recruit. So it
Here's
really
an
went to some
example
lengths.
of one of the photos, and I believe this one was photoshopped. So,
look, I can do that. I'm very good at water polo. Never been
Look
in a
at-
pool.
Right. Some of them, didn't they buy some of the equipment on Amazon? Like, hey, let's just buy this real quick.
They
and-
bought some of the equipment, faked these pictures, and look, if you have a kid who went through this and it's stressful, it's really, disconcerting
disheartening.
that other people can take your, look, I have a daughter in college, hi Cassandra. Anyway, they stress out about it, but you want them to accomplish what they can accomplish on their own, and you have to teach them the right lessons. This was clearly the wrong lesson. I'm not sure here if the kids were spoiled or the parents were spoiled.
And that seems to be the kind of second debate that a lot of people are having. Did the kids know? Because they're saying the kids had no idea and they're not a part of this.
Right. In some ways, the scheme happened. You can see the kids not knowing. For example, a test taker changing their answers later, and maybe the child didn't know. In other situations where people sat for the test for them, it's hard to believe they didn't know.
Right.
But, it's hard to say.
And for Felicity Huffman's case, it's a little interesting because she had to request extra time in order to move her daughter's test site to a particular one so someone could change the answers.
So apparently they had to get her, diagnosed with a learning disability so she could get the extra time, then go through the trouble of shifting the test site from what would have been her high school to this controlled test center where the proctor was bribed by this guy Singer.
So even if she didn't know, her daughter, it's just you have to feel for her because she might think she's a learning disability when her mother might have just said this in order to get, I don't know.
It seems like that's what happened, so it can knock the child's ego as well. So it's
about
thing.
the parents' ego, Somehow their child, where they go to school, is a reflection on them somehow. It's ridiculous.
Because they're set up. It's not like they need this to make sure they're set for life.
Some of these people paid upwards of $500,000 to $1 million. You know what?
$1 million.
If your kid's not good enough, set them up in business. It's a good start. That's a lot of money.
And as far as Lori Loughlin's daughter, her daughter's already in business. She has more than 1 million subscribers on her YouTube page. She's already making money, sponsored ads at her college dorm. So it's not like she's not making money.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to understand.
Not that this hasn't been going on for years. It's just these people got caught.
And that is interesting because now people are saying, well, what about when people, I guess, the upfront ways to donate money and have a building named after your family and then have your child
The
apply to that
old-fashioned
school?
creepy way. You buy a building.
Right. There's subtle and legal ways to do it. But,
Darn right.
but in the end result is always the same.
Good to see you, man.
Guys,
Thank
good to
you,
see you.
Rocco.
Thank you.
Quick break. Coming right back.